And welcome back to your hometown radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, coming to you on your hometown radio station, Classic 1220 CFAJ, right here in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. My guest this hour is Mayor Matt SISCOE. He is the Mayor of St. Catharines. And Mr. Mayor, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here.
Mr. Mayor, a lot of people in St. Catharines received an email from you. It said the subject is Take Action, Help Ontario's Big City Mayors Solve the Crisis in St. Catharines. Can you tell us a little bit about this, sir? Because everybody that I know in St. Catharines is talking about the homeless situation, and, you know, it seems to be getting more and more each and every day.
Yeah, it's, this is a campaign that's been started by the Big City Mayors called Solve the Crisis. And it's a recognition that there is a humanitarian crisis that we're seeing on our streets, and St. Catharines is, right in the middle of it. We are seeing homelessness that is getting bigger. We're seeing tent encampments showing up across the city. And along with that homelessness, we're seeing a rise in addictions and mental health issues that are, right there out on the streets that people are being confronted with on a daily basis. And where these issues used to be confined to downtown areas, and in St. Catharines, down in the ravines, they are expanding all across the city. And one of the things I like to point out when I'm talking to residents, this isn't just a St. Catharines issue. This is across North America right now, but in Southern Ontario, it's being acutely felt in all cities, bigger than ours, but also smaller than ours. And so we're really encouraging the community to get to solvethecrisis.ca. That's the website that's been set up, because there's an understanding now that while the municipal level, the cities and the regions understand the urgency of this problem, the provincial and federal governments just aren't there. They don't see the urgency. They're focused on other issues, and we need the community to convince officials at upper levels, like, this is where you need to be spending your time and energy.
Mr. Mayor, according to you and other members of the political arena, what are the main causes of homelessness? Why are we seeing such an increase in homelessness, especially here in St. Catharines?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we know that there is an affordability crisis going on across the country. In St. Catharines and Niagara, there's been a drastic lack of affordable housing units that have been built in over the last 20 or 30 years. And so we definitely know that there is a lack of safe, affordable housing out there right now. But even more than that, with the rise of fentanyl over the last 15 years, we have seen drugs and the mental health that comes with those drugs just attack our citizens, across the board. And so we're really now dealing with the after effects of what I have told people is basically a de facto decriminalization. It wasn't a decision that was made by a level of government. No law was passed. But because the court systems have deemed that, addiction issues are health issues, they're not prosecuting. And while I understand where they're coming from, that has created a real problem on our streets. We have folks that are openly using drugs across the community. Residents are finding needles all over the place. And when you allow that open drug use to happen, lots of other elements of what they call street-involved behavior, what I say is, in some cases criminality, it exists along with those drugs, because even though drugs, like I said, have undergone this de facto decriminalization, they are still illegal, and so they are still being sold by people engaging in illegal activities, and all the other illegal activities come with it. And that's what I think we're seeing on our streets now.
I would imagine this fentanyl crisis and the other crisis of drugs that we're seeing on our streets must be a lot of work for the NRP, the OPP, and the RCMP, especially since it is against the law.
Well, and this is exactly it. But one of the problems we're running into is, the NRP. I've had long conversations with officers in the NRP, the senior leadership, the chief, and they said, we can arrest people, but a lot of times they get to the courthouse and they're turned around and walk right back out, and the charges are never dealt with. They don't go to court because the Crown has decided that these cases aren't going to be prosecuted. So it's I think a frustrating situation for the police to be in as well, where these issues just aren't even being dealt with. So we know that the courts exist the way they are. We also know that we need access to more mental health services, because in many cases, the folks that we see on the street, they have mental health issues that may have caused them to turn to drugs. Maybe they've managed to avoid the drugs, but they still have the mental health issues. We know the pieces that need to go into the solution for this. Like I said, it's up to us to try and convince upper levels of government who have responsibility over these areas to help us fund the solutions and make this process work better so that people can feel comfortable going out into their communities, right? Like right now we have an issue in St. Catharines. Folks have told me they don't feel comfortable going into some parks.
That's right.
Well, that's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable situation for us. We need to get the parks back to being a public space for public use where people feel comfortable to take their kids and to enjoy the day.
But how are you going to do that, Mr. Mayor?
Well, this is where the campaign comes in. We're asking the provincial government to create a single point of contact for municipalities to be able to work with that can tie together all the resources. The truth is, this isn't a simple problem to fix, but actually encompasses, I think, we've counted 16 different ministries in the provincial government that have some aspect to play. So we said we need a single point of contact, and then we need additional funding to be able to actually deal with the issues. As I said, we know we need more mental health resources on the ground. We know that we need more housing, like transition housing, something similar to what we're building here in St. Catharines. You know, we had a great announcement recently with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing where we're building bridge housing, and this is for people who are homeless, who have been homeless for a long time, who have lots of different issues. The bridge housing has the 24/7 support that we keep telling people is necessary to get these folks out of the tents, out of the parks, and into actual traditional housing. You can't just drop them off in an apartment. They need support. So that's the building that we're building at 320 Geneva Street. But we need more funding for programs like that. And we need the upper levels of government to come to the table, because the reality is we can't put this on the property tax base. It's just not possible. It's too much. And the province and the federal government both have the financial capacity that the municipality just doesn't.
You know, we've been talking to people on the street, Mr. Mayor, and there was one lady who lives in the Gale Crescent area and in one of the big condos there, and she was physically attacked by a homeless person who was obviously high on some sort of drug. They threatened to kill her dog. People in that area are afraid to walk the streets at night because of the drug situation. And yes, the temporary housing that the region put up on Riordan and Gale Crescent certainly has helped a little bit, but still in that area, you walk around, you find, used condoms, you find needles, you find pipes, you find other drug paraphernalia. And it seems that it's the tax-paying citizen who has to take the brunt of the homelessness.
Yeah, and that's exactly my opinion on this as well. Right? And that's where I come at it from as the mayor of the city of St. Catharines. And this is something I try to explain to folks. Like, at the end of the day, the city doesn't have a mandate to do homeless shelters. We don't have a mandate for mental health. That's supposed to be led by upper levels of government. And the region does some of this, the province does some of it, the federal government has responsibility over some of it. We're trying to get those levels of government to understand these issues. A lot of what you just discussed, though, and that speaks to one of my points as well, is that low-level criminality that's existing in the community. We know right now that the majority of the people who are not in shelter, we know that those folks actually have been banned from shelters because, they've assaulted someone in the shelter or they've been harassing to people within the shelter system. And so they're not actually able to get a room. And what I've said to my colleagues at the region, we need a solution for that, because it's not okay that they're now living in tents in the parks in my neighborhoods. We have to have a better answer for that. So I've had conversations with our police chief here in Niagara. I've had conversations with the commissioner at the region who's in charge of community services, whose department is responsible for building these things. I've said, we need a solution, and we need the solution yesterday, because it's fundamentally unfair to the residents in my community that they can't go outside of their homes without feeling, in some neighborhoods, unsafe. And that's never going to be okay, and we can't accept that within the community.
Now, I understand, Mr. Mayor, that the homelessness situation also weighs heavy on the regional government. And this place on Riordan, it only has 50 units that are available. And I think that if you go around the Riordan project or the homes, you see garbage all over the place. You see people who are stoned out of their trees. You get people who are injecting and using drugs in the public view. And Isn't there something that can be done in the short time to give the city back to the honest and hardworking citizens?
Well, that's the effort that we're trying to make. But the reality is we also need the court system to deal with, the breaking of the law. We need the court system to deal with it appropriately. And this is the other piece to the puzzle. I can ask the NRP to increase patrols, which they have done. We have our core unit in the downtown that's out doing foot patrols. But at the end of the day, if they're picking people up and bringing them to the courthouse, and the courthouse is turning them around and walking them right back out the door, that emboldens people, right? It makes people realize, I can get away with a lot of stuff and nothing's going to happen to me. You can't have consequence-free situations like that. Like there have to be consequences when people break the law.
Cause and effect.
And exactly. And I've probably said the next thing I'm about to say a number of times in the last 2 months. The broken window theory was brought in by Mayor Rudy Giuliani in New York City. And while I have a lot of issues with Rudy Giuliani, the reality is the broken window theory worked. And it made a better situation in New York. And that's what we're encountering now. We're allowing the lower level crime to exist and to happen and not be prosecuted with no consequences. Well, that emboldens people, makes them feel like, well, if I can get away with this, I can get away with that. And the next thing you know, you have the problems we have on our street.
Mr. Mayor, are there any statistics about where the homelessness or those experiencing homelessness are actually from? Like, I find it hard to believe that all the people that are facing homelessness here in St. Catharines are from the Niagara region.
Well, the reality is the statistics we are able to keep. In general, it's always been around 90% of the homeless are from the region of Niagara. They tend to congregate largely in St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Welland. So you will have folks from around the region that migrate to those areas. Probably about half of the homeless people are currently staying in St. Catharines just by virtue of the fact it's the biggest city. It has the most services available here. Sure. But the statistics that the region has given me always seem to indicate that only about 10% of the shelter occupants are from outside of the region. And my understanding is that's actually pretty consistent across the province. When you go to different municipalities, with the exception of Toronto, which always has a larger influx of newcomers to the country, you see similar numbers, about a 90-10 split where, 90% of the folks in the shelter are largely from the surrounding area.
Right.
So that's my understanding, unless those statistics have drastically changed in the last few months. That's what the region's numbers tell us.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you very much for sharing your time with us. I know that you're a very busy man, and my hat is off to you and the other members of council who are trying very hard to put some, sanity and safety back into the situation that a lot of people in St. Catharines are very weary about. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And once again, good luck. And if there's anything we can do here to help you or any other member of council, just let me know.
Thank you, Rob. Sincerely appreciate it.
Take care, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent.
All right. I'll be back on the other side of this short break as we continue here on your hometown radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.